Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day is regarding President Joe Biden being exposed in a new book that's set to be released on January 17th. Now, in this new book, it details out President Joe Biden getting enraged and cussing whenever he would stumble across something former President Donald Trump left behind. It details out his feuds with Kamala Harris, him cussing so loud in the White House that his aides in other rooms can hear, and it gives us his grand plan on how he expects to solve illegal immigration. Folks, this is an episode you are not going to want to miss. Support us by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below and double checking to make sure that bell notification says all notifications so you're notified whenever we go live or upload a video. And folks, we got a banger of an episode here to kick off this new year. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. President Joe Biden would reportedly become enraged when he would stumble across reminders of former President Donald Trump inside the White House. The revelation was made in the forthcoming book, The Fight of His Life Inside the Joe Biden's White House, authored by Chris Whipple. Hell of a title by Chris, folks. The fight of his life? Could you get any more spot on talking about Joe Biden? The man looks like he's just fighting to stay alive. Look at him trying to breathe. He fights with his teleprompter. He's a golf ball backwards. He falls up a flight of stairs. The man's just trying to survive, folks. Spot on. Spot on by Chris Whipple. The fight of his life. You're damn right. The Daily Mail reported that examples of remnants from the Trump administration included a big screen television and a $50,000 golf simulator, of which Trump paid for, that he had installed to allow him to play virtual golf on almost any golf course around the world. Now, this move makes sense by Trump. One, to pay for it himself rather than having the taxpayers pay for it. And two, rather than freaking getting the Secret Service to plan this whole thing and get him all chauffeured out there and on the taxpayer dime just to play a game of golf every day, he could do it from the luxury of the White House in a safe space and be able to actually work while he's also playing golf at the same time. Now, you think this is something Joe Biden would get behind and be like, yeah, this is a pretty good move. We already have a bowling alley. We got a movie theater. Now we got a golf simulator. Joe Biden plays golf. And I should put that in air quotes, plays golf. The reason why I put in air quotes is the guy hit a golf ball backwards one time. Now, I shouldn't be shocked because the man fell up a flight of stairs, which I've never seen before either. But clearly, Joe Biden continues to astonish us all. Well, he's going to get upset here and say, what an effing a-hole, Biden said, showing the contraption to a guest. Biden allegedly said to a guest while showing them one of the things that Trump left behind. And I call this Trump derangement syndrome because clearly it goes from the bottom all the way to the top with Joe Biden. Because it's one of those things that no matter what Trump does, even if it's a good thing, people get upset with it. It didn't cost anybody any money. Trump paid for it himself. Other presidents can use it. But because he touched it, they're going, oh, icky. It's so childish, you guys. It is literally so childish. But, you know, clearly Joe Biden is a child. Biden reportedly has such a strong distaste for Trump that he opposes using things that former president used, the book said. He was also reportedly paranoid that the Secret Service personnel were loyal to Trump. God forbid that they're loyal to a prior president, which is their job, by the way. And I'm sure they're loyal to President Joe Biden as well while he runs our country into the ground. But I also find it interesting that, again, the Trump derangement syndrome, I'm not going to use anything the former president uses, all the while he's going to use the White House. He's going to use the room in which Donald Trump slept in, and the former presidents as well. He's going to probably use the same toilet, all these things. He's just going to act childish, folks. And you see this from the progressive left to the Democrat Party at times, where literally that Trump could cure cancer and they would get upset with the guy. Anything Trump did that was good, it was bad. Anything Trump did that was bad was extra bad. That's how it all works. Earlier this month, it was revealed that scenes of illegal aliens flooding the U.S. southern border caused Biden to erupt in states of fury, dropping F-bombs in front of aides. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants kept arriving and Biden was furious, the book says, according to the copy obtained by Fox News. Aides had rarely seen him so angry. For all over the West Wing, you could hear the president cursing, dropping F-bombs. He'd always apologize when women were present, meaning that he's done this a lot. Now, what I find interesting is, why is he getting so upset that there's this massive illegal immigration surge? Because he's the one that causes since day one, right? He's the one that was removing Trump's policies. He was pushing to have Title 42 removed and blaming it basically, well, it's the law, right? The judges ruled, we got to follow the law. It's the law, even though they're the ones that have been pushing this the entire time. So why is he being upset? You caused it, Joe. And maybe it's my theory that Joe Biden is so forgetful that his cognitive mind isn't just all there, that he literally forgot that he did that 2 years ago. There's no reason as to why he should be upset. He caused it. He caused it. It makes you wonder who's actually running the thing, right? Who's running the show here? Who's pulling the strings of the puppet? Because if he's getting upset over something that he caused, either he's a drastic idiot, which is very well possible, or somebody else is running the show and he didn't approve of it, but he had to push it forward anyways. Well, check this out. What's his grand plan here, folks? What was really going on behind the scenes? A senior Biden official reportedly told the author that the anger came from an apparent lack of solutions of the crisis. Our prediction has been right now for 2 years. It's confirmed here inside the White House, being exposed by this author, Chris Whipple. They didn't have a damn clue on how to solve this, so they created a massive problem and they couldn't figure out how to solve it. Go back to any immigration video that we've covered here, and we probably talked about that entire aspect of they don't have a clue. They don't know what they're doing. They caused this massive issue. They don't know how they caused it, and they don't know how to fix it, but they're going to call it a challenge and not a crisis. That's the theme, and it's continued for 2 years now. 2 years. And it's going to continue for another 2, folks. They don't have a damn clue what's going on. Not a damn clue. It's like, how would you feel if you were me and these were the solutions you had? It's the way to the presidency, right? The advisor said. The book said that early in his term, he had served the F-bomb mostly for discussions, rather reserved the F-bomb for mostly discussions of the southern border. But he later started using it with other crises began popping up. You got to love it how he was like, well, I got to have it for the most important things, right? Because he's only going to have one crisis. And then the next one popped up. And then the next one popped up. And he's going, F this, F that. It's everybody else's fault other than myself. No, Joe, it's your fault. And you're going to see a constant theme here with Democrats as we progress down through this article from this book that details out how it's everybody else's fault. They're just going to cuss and complain about it and not have any solutions on how to actually fix the damn thing, which we see here. The book gained attention earlier this week when it revealed that Biden allegedly called Vice President Kamala Harris, who struggled through her first 2 years in office, a work in progress. I mean, lack of work and definitely in progress. She ain't doing any work, and neither are you, Joe. So maybe both of you should be called either work in progress or just in progress, because nothing you get anything done. She's called the border czar, and he's throwing F-bombs in the White House, and she hasn't done anything to solve this thing. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says the border's secure. Kamala Harris says the border's secure. Hell, she lied on camera saying she's been to the border, which she hasn't been to the border. That famous clip of, well, I've been to the border. I've been to the border. Well, I haven't been to Europe either. So she hasn't been to the border, still hasn't been to the border. You just had Karine Jean-Pierre like 2-3 weeks ago say that Joe Biden's been to the border. Peter Doocy followed up and said, well, when has he been to the border? She wouldn't answer that question because the guy's never been to the border. But they're going to continue to lie to us. They don't have any solutions. And now they're hounding each other inside the White House. According to Politico, Biden reportedly learned that Harris's husband was complaining about the policy portfolio that she had been given to tackle in her role as vice president. Biden was annoyed, the book said. He hadn't asked Harris to do anything he hadn't done as vice president, and she'd beg him for the voting rights assignment. Well, I mean, Joe Biden, quite frankly, didn't do much as a vice president either, so there's not much he could pass down to Kamala Harris. And why would he pass anything down to her? I mean, look at the way she handled California, my home state. Why would you give her anything? Well, another senior administrator official agreed, according to the book, saying that Harris's inner circle didn't serve her well in the presidential campaign, and they're all ill-serving her now. It's everybody else's fault, you guys. And this is where the theme you get from the Democrat Party. You see it with Joe Biden, blaming on other people for the immigration, throwing F-bombs left to right. Now you see it with Kamala Harris going, oh, well, you know, my staffers didn't serve me well. Now they're ill-serving me. Now they're putting me in the bad spotlight, putting me in the wrong direction. No, they're not. You just suck. You suck at politics. You suck at your job. You sucked in California. You sucked at vice president. You would have sucked at the president if you were to actually obtain that position. It don't matter where you at. You're going to be bad at your job. That's just how it is. She doesn't know what she's doing. I actually don't know what she would be good at. But this is what she does. Maybe she'd be good at just complaining. Maybe that's a job if there's something out there. You also saw it from Hillary Clinton, who literally to this day has blamed anything and everything on why she lost the presidency. Literally anything and everything. She's never blamed herself. Politicians, for some reason, just can't blame themselves for the result that they got because people don't like them. Well, there you have it, folks. This new book's coming out January 17th. You can pre-order on Amazon right now. The Fight of His Life, the Inside of Joe Biden's White House or whatever by Chris Whipple. Go check it out. Leave us a comment what you think about all this down below. They don't have a damn plan to solve this immigration crisis. It's only going to get worse for 2 years. Well, moving into our next story of the day, folks, we have controversial California fast food minimum wage law placed on hold. So we got an update here on what's going on with this all. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below. Double check, make sure that bell notification says all notifications. Folks, we got a lot of stuff coming out this new year. Be notified by hitting all that. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. Well, a California court issued a temporary hold on a law that would establish a board permitted to increase minimum wages received by fast food workers. Thank God. Now, if you're one of those, just as I am, that does not want to see minimum wage go from $15.50 to $22 an hour, then this is a small victory for us, and I'll explain why in just one moment. The Fast Food Accountability and Standards Recovery Act, also known as the FAST Recovery Act, would create, get this, a fast food council responsible for drafting sector-wide minimum standards on wages, working hours, and other working conditions. In other words, the government is just passing the buck, meaning the power, onto a council of people that you don't even know that are going to tell you as a business owner what you can and can't do with your business. This is so typical of Democrats and so typical of government to overreach once again and tell you as a citizen what you can and can't do with your life, and furthermore, what you can and can't do with your business. Typical of them. They're so typical, especially in the state of California. Well, this was signed 3 months ago by Governor Gavin Newsom. The Sacramento Superior Court paused the implementation of the law, which was slated to go into effect literally yesterday, and scheduled a hearing for January 13th. Save Local Restaurants, an advocacy group, that garnered more than 1 million signatures to place the Fast Recovery Act on a statewide ballot in the 2024 election, said in a press release that the court's ruling upholds the California referendum process. So this is the part where I said this is a small victory for us, because it says here, today's decision by the Sacramento Superior Court protects the voices of over 1 million California voters who exercise their democratic right in asking to vote on a piece of legislation before bearing its burden. So it gives us an opportunity to fight back with our voice, with our vote in the next election. This process has been perceived for more than 100 years and was in grave risk of being suppressed. While this pause is temporary, the impact is beyond just one piece of legislation and keeps intact, for the time being, California's century-old referendum process. The legislation, backed by the powerful Service Employees International Union, only applies to restaurants with 100 or more establishments. And I love how they only applies. That's a big deal. That's a lot of restaurants. That's a lot of businesses across the United States. Though a caveat exists for chains operating a bakery that produces for sale bread as a standalone menu item. Members of the Fast Food Council would be permitted to raise minimum wages up to $20 per hour, representing an increase of over 40%. So for your business, if you have establishments of 100 or more across the United States, your labor just went up 40%. Where do you think that gets passed down to? Probably the consumer, meaning your goods or services that you're buying, so obviously it would be goods, just went up exponentially. And that might happen in the short term, it might happen in the long term. It might take time to get there. We'll have to see what happens if this actually goes into effect. We'll see what happens after the hearing of January 13th, but this is crazy, folks. And you think of like, oh, well, this is never going to happen in my state. Remember, California leads a lot of leftist states. So if you're watching the Bald Brad Show and you live in a leftist-leaning state, this might be coming to you very soon. Save Local Restaurants contends that the Fast Recovery Act would place an undue burden on businesses across the state and raise fast food prices for residents. The bill comes after many restaurants were forced to close their doors following the state's harsh lockdown measures. You got to love that. Granted, it's been a couple years, but a lot of these people had to take out loans. They had to literally use their retirement savings. They had to sell their houses, whatever it may be, just to keep their business alive and keep paying their employees. And as they're trying to recoup these losses, or they're trying to just kind of stabilize where we're just at a couple years ago, because things don't just happen in the snap of a finger, that they're going to just try and push this through and go, well, hey, we already screwed you once. Now we're going to screw you again by making this fast food council. It's going to tell you what you can and can't do, just as we told you what you could and couldn't do with your business before and made you struggle severely. And some of your business went out of business literally during COVID. And now we're going to screw you once again. It's so typical of the Democrats and progressive left to do this. And I don't like to lump them together, but when there's things that we can lump together between the two parties, we got to call it out for where it's at. And it's such an overreach. And I'm so tired of them trying to increase minimum wage because it gets passed down to us. We're already in inflation. Governor Gavin Newsom just gave everybody like $300, $350 or more, depending on your status that you put on your tax return and basically your level of income. $350 to help curb inflation. I'm not even kidding. Let that sink in. He's giving you more money to help curb inflation. That doesn't do it at all. That actually increases inflation. He's a knucklehead. And so here, it's going to do the exact same thing. You're going to inflate the economy because the prices of goods just went up even more. You've inflated it. So you're only attributing to the problem. And then the ones that are stoked about getting paid $20 an hour don't understand that, yeah, their standard of living would go up, standard of living, if that's what you want to call it, because everybody's perception of a living wage, standard of living kind of fluctuates from person to person or family to family. Now that's just going to go up for you as well, because you're going to have to pay more for the same food that everybody else is having to pay, even though you're getting paid more at that time. But it's going to cause everything else to gradually go up as time goes on as well. So some point in the future, you're going to pay exponentially even more food or a certain cost of service that everybody else has to pay. So even though this is only affecting 100 or so establishments, let's say, or more, that's going to flow into other sectors as well, because people, even though they're not working in the fast food industry, are still going to have to buy that food from somewhere else, which is going to cause everything else to go up. So you don't understand how this works and how the trickle effect or the ripple effect goes out there in the sector of the economy. They don't get that. So yeah, this focuses on just, say, restaurants with 100 more establishments across the United States, but it still has effect on the economy. It still has effect on labor and these business owners. And there's a misnomer here, which we'll get to in a moment, going, well, McDonald's is a massive corporation. They're global. They could pay for this stuff. They don't understand that there's franchise owners that are going to be hit with this as well. And franchise owners just might own one restaurant. They might own two restaurants. So you're literally screwing them over big time. It's not like they have record profits, these franchises. Some of them are struggling. And so you're screwing them over. But again, people only think of like these mega corporations. They only think of one aspect. They don't think of the small business owner that's struggling to get by. And just because they own a McDonald's does not mean they're raking in the dough by any means. Well, it goes on here to say a poll of labor economists conducted by the Employment Policies Institute, a fiscally conservative think tank, found that 83% opposed the Fast Recovery Act. While strong majorities agree that the law would increase operating costs for restaurants, lead to higher food prices for customers, and cause the closure of restaurants. I absolutely 100% agree with that consensus. The only issue is 83% they says oppose. But the problem, again, we live in the most leftist-leaning state in the union. So I'm not really fully on with this poll here. I think a lot of people in the state of California would vote to implement this minimum wage increase. McDonald's president, an opponent of the bill, as you would imagine, previously argued that the law arbitrarily imposes higher costs on one type of restaurant while sparing another. And this is coming from a party, by the way, that loves diversity, that loves equity and equality. So while you're putting on restaurants with 100 establishments or more, you're not putting on everybody else that's at the lower bottom. So there's literally, now you're fluctuating the economy. You're literally injecting certain things in the economy that benefit one business and screw another business, which messes with the competition level at the end of the day. So he says here that that a type of restaurant while sparring another, and postulate that backroom puddling would explain the caveat for restaurants with a bakery. If you are a small business owner running two restaurants, which I previously noted, that are part of a national chain like McDonald's, you'd be targeted by the bill, he wrote in a letter denouncing the bill. But if you own 20 restaurants that are not part of the large chain, this bill does not apply to you. Let that sink in. You're screwing over people, but they don't think that far into things whatsoever. Several leading fast food companies have unveiled moves to automate restaurant operations as minimum wage hikes are persistent labor shortages, disadvantage employers in the job market. McDonald's recently created a test restaurant in Texas, which we covered last week, in which customers can use kiosks and a mobile app to grab their food orders from a conveyor belt rather than interacting with a customer-facing staff, while Chipotle tests a robotic chip maker in a California location. Now, some of you wrote in the comments, well, what happens if they mess up your order? There's still employees working there. There's still somebody that will sit there and handle and fix your order. Things are prone to happen. But the point is here is to ultimately bring down that cost and hopefully bring down the cost for you at the store. That doesn't mean it's going to happen because they're a public company and that they're trying to meet the demands of certain shareholders and ultimately increasing profits. But in the long term, hopefully it's going to keep the cost down for you because they don't have to pay for medical, they don't have to pay for insurance, they don't have to pay for all these things that they would with an employee where they just have a robot taking care of it all. Now, as you see, this is also going into Chipotle as well, where they have a robotic chip maker in the state of California. So people are going, well, Texas is only $7.50. They're not combating minimum wage in Texas. There's no minimum wage hike. Well, just because there's no minimum wage hike in Texas doesn't mean they can't sit there and put out a test store in that state and see how it runs so they can implement it in a state like California to do away with it. And also, if it works efficiently, why would they not implement it in the state of Texas? So you're seeing a company that's having ramifications, say in California, that's going to ripple into other states and go, well, screw it. You know, we have this robot. It works great in California. It's dropped our costs exponentially. And now we have even more profit. Why would we not put it in our other stores across the United States? And then we don't have to pay those people either. So you just basically negotiated yourself out of the market by increasing $50 to $22 an hour out of the market 100%. Now you don't have a job. So we go back to Thomas Sowell's idea that minimum wage increase is basically zero. You have no money because you just basically competed out of the market because you wanted to ask for money because you want to be greedy and the companies don't want to pay or they don't have the money to pay it. And you're also asking at a very bad time in which we just had a massive pandemic that put people out of business that are already struggling to keep their businesses open, all the while they're still struggling to look for labor. There's a lot of things going on. Now's not the time to implement this, but I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the Democrats don't get it. The press left don't get it. The state of California doesn't get it. Governor Gavin Newsom, that knucklehead that wants to run for president, doesn't get it. God, if you vote for that man, you're making a big mistake. Just look at the state of California, how it's ran. He's probably going to run for president. He sucks at his job. In the same way Kamala Harris sucked as being senator from our first segment of today. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. These people suck, but they think they're good enough to be president of the United States. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below, folks. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. And folks, I hope we have a hell of a year because we had a hell of a last one last year. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bull Brad Show.